First Lady Jill Biden appeared on The View, and I want to play a couple of moments from that appearance. Some great stuff. First, her making a remark about Trump, and this comes within the context of the upcoming debates, one at the end of June between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Here it is, then I'll respond.
The first presidential debate is less than a month away, and we've debated at this table. There have been people that have thought President Biden shouldn't even debate President Trump just due to the fact that Donald Trump will gaslight, he overtalks, yes. There are no guardrails. So
he stalks.
I happen to believe it's really important, more than ever, to have a debate with guardrails. What is the strategy that the president has going into this? Any tips you'd have for a debate that we could pull off where we could actually hear our candidates?
No, they've built that in where they're going to turn off those mics so that somebody can't ramble or scream at somebody. Not that my husband would be the one doing that. No.
I'm going to really quickly pause your viewing of this video to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're enjoying the content by clicking that subscribe button. Thank you so much.
And so that's already been negotiated. And, I think the American people deserve a debate because you need to see your choices. You need to see Trump, and you need to see the president, and you need to see the differences. And my husband's, and you're going to see how smart he is and the experience he has. And then you'll see somebody who, like you're saying, I'm going to use Joy's words, can't put a sentence together, and everything is beautiful, and it's wonderful.
Tremendous.
Bigly. Tremendous. Yeah. So I think the American people deserve to see the two men who are running for this office, because your choice is going to be clear.
Yeah.
Well,
just absolutely killing it there. And I have to say, before playing this next clip where she puts the stakes of this election in very stark terms, I have been saying to you all that as we get closer to November, the campaign just will continue to build up. More voices will be out there, more surrogates for Biden will be out there making the case and informing people. And a lot of people don't quite pay a lot of attention, I should say, to the election until right before. And so as we get closer and closer, there's more noise being made, more pro-Biden noise being made, anti-Trump, and more people taking the time to pay attention so they're being informed on the stakes. And a good example of this is even today. Biden delivering a speech. If we have time in the segment, I'll do it. If not, in the bonus show, we'll talk about this speech. Join button below is just what you got to click to get the bonus show. And First Lady Jill Biden, appearance on The View, Kamala Harris speaking at this event, and a lot of voices out there making the case. And as I've said, we have the facts on our side. If people understood the stakes and the contrast, then the election would go the way of Biden, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But people don't understand the stakes. And so all it takes, even though it's actually a tall task, but all it takes is just informing people. And that's the hopeful element. Now, I will address the scary element of this moment, which, as many people have continued to bring up, is the polls. And that's actually discussed in this clip. So here's that first.
Consistently, we're seeing poll after poll that are showing Trump beating your husband outside of the margin of error, when in fact last time in 2020 Joe Biden was beating him in nearly every poll. How do you turn those numbers around with 5 months out, and are you fearful of what a second Trump term could look like?
Or a third, as Donald Trump says. So we are going to meet people where they are. We're going to go to college campuses. We're going to go to just every state that we can get into. I've been traveling every single day. Joe has been traveling as much as possible. And we're not going to take anything for granted. And those polls are going to turn, I'm confident of it, because as time goes on and as people start to focus a little bit more about what's at stake and start to become educated on the issues and the differences between the two men, I believe that Americans are going to choose good over evil.
Yes.
Good over evil. Demolishing Trump there, as you can tell. But the conversation around the polls is something that I've wanted to get into a little bit, and so we'll do it here. First, the easier part about what you have to focus on, even when polls are brought up, is that our decision, our choice here is pretty simple. Regardless of how the polls look, we're going to do the same thing. If all of a sudden polls looked amazing for President Joe Biden, we would still work as hard as possible to defeat Donald Trump and reelect Biden. If the polls looked horrible for Biden, we'd do the same thing. And so that should give you some peace of mind. Not that the polls sometimes don't look freaky, but instead that sometimes these conversations are had as if this should prompt some sort of change of course. But it's too late for that in my mind. And thus, let's go out and work hard. But that brings us to what some people say, no, that's not true. It's not a settled issue. We could have this emergency rip Biden out type of situation, put someone else in. People suggest, even though she continues to say she would never do this, Michelle Obama. And we've heard Gavin Newsom should replace Biden, even though when you look at the polls between Newsom and Trump, I don't think it'd actually be as easy as a lot of people think. But that situation, I don't think people quite understand. First of all, that would necessitate Biden's cooperation, and Biden's made pretty clear he's going to see this thing through. But also, it's actually, in my mind, more risky than just working hard to inform people. Now, if we didn't have the facts on our side, if Biden didn't have a pretty dang strong record with issues, but strong record, as I went through extensively, super extensively in a past segment today that turned out to be 25 minutes, which is a doozy, and rarely we upload videos that long, but went through Biden's policy record. So that's an example of the facts being on our side. The way that Trump threatens democracy, how unhinged he is when he's promised for a second term. If people will understand it, then Biden will be reelected. But if we didn't have the facts on our side, then maybe there's more room for different conversation. But in this situation, I think whatever energy we'd spend launching ourselves into an incredibly unstable situation, as if we have the power, but let's say that we can make the decision today. The decision that would rip Biden out and replace him with someone else as Democratic nominee would cause even more instability, uncertainty, and would be even more risky than just putting all the energy we'd spend on then focusing on making that situation successful. Let's just spend that on informing people about the facts, and that will yield the correct result. And we have time. And also, Democrats have consistently, in recent years, overperformed the polls. And we're seeing this unclear picture. Simon Rosenberg recently just randomly came across a long hour live stream where he went through and spoke a lot about this. And I'll actually link that below if you want to check it out. He does a really good job of explaining, sort of as he put it, why he'd rather be us than them going into this election. And one of the things he pointed out was that polls are sort of all over the place, but then we get this average of the polls that makes it seem like we have one answer of where things stand, when in reality, there's a very unclear picture being told by the polls, one over here, one over there, and it's not as clear as sometimes other sort of pictures are portrayed by the polling in a more clear way, and this time is definitely not that. And so with that in mind, Democrats have continued to overperform the polls, and that gives me even more hope that if things are really close going into Election Day, that overperformance, the machine that's been built by the Democratic Party, the on-the-ground work that's being done that's way more advanced than what Republicans have going on right now. They're just not doing the on-the-ground game as aggressively and effectively as Democrats. I think we're going to see another overperformance of the polls. And we have time even to see a shift in the polls. And just remember, the polls are just a snapshot in time. And I think the American people are a little bit all over the place in how they're feeling. And so once we actually get to Election Day, once people have been hearing these messages over and over and over again for some time and have paid more attention, I agree with Joe Biden that it's going to go the correct way. And if it doesn't, I'll be here with you to lose my ever-loving mind and not understand what America did. But let's not think about that until we absolutely have to. Let me know if you think it's time to panic or if we just got to do the work. And I'm really charging these questions to make it obvious there's one correct answer. But you can tell me whatever you like about what you feel of the polls and what we should do going into November.